Hey Scapers, so summer 2025, Jagex have been running microtransaction experiments to try to figure out a new direction to lead microtransactions in RuneScape 3. And they've finally released a blog post talking about the results of these experiments that they've been doing, and to give us an idea what they're thinking and how the players reacted to all these experiments as well, no less. So I'm going to be looking at that today, talking a little bit about the statistics of what they found out, and then we've also got a premiere video they're posting talking about the future of microtransactions for RuneScape 3. So I'm going to be reacting to that, maybe we'll share some thoughts about it as well. So join me for the statistics and then we'll watch the video afterwards. So let's just jump into the blog here. We'll talk about the treasure hunter removal first, which is the removal of loot boxes. So experiment 1 tested the removal of treasure hunter for 1 week with purchasable bonus XP bundles capped to 1 purchase per bundle per day. So the feelings towards treasure hunter's removal. 65% of the players felt positive or neutral about the treasure hunter removal, with 35% feeling negative about loot boxes being removed. And that's, honestly, to me, that's a scary high number of people that want treasure hunter and loot boxes in the game. Like 1/3 of people were sad that loot boxes disappeared. That's, yeah, unsettling to me. That's very unsettling. Half of the players expressed a desire to retain some form of progression supporting microtransaction options. So half the people that responded to the survey want some form of microtransaction purchase that they can progress their account with. Also a very scary number, to be honest. But equally so, if treasure hunter and loot boxes were removed, half of players were more likely to recommend RuneScape. And obviously, here you go, 25% were less likely to recommend RuneScape if microtransaction loot boxes were removed. So those are clearly the same people that want loot boxes in the game. They're now not wanting to share that the game is good anymore if they remove loot boxes. There's some crazy numbers because this is far higher than I thought, but I always knew that treasure hunter and loot boxes in-game has this weird cult following of people who are really into it for some reason. Frankly, I don't like loot boxes in any game, so it's completely insanity to me that you would want something like that. But I guess if people have tons of money, or the inability to not spend money, then, you know, they would want some form of way to keep funneling their excess money into something that they're doing, and that would be this game, I guess. Though they say at first glance the removal of treasure hunter is mostly positive, but with notable contingent of players expressing concerns for its removal. However, when diving into the written responses, a much clearer picture starts to build, so they talk a little bit about that. Key positive themes expressed by players. Reducing progression-based MTX and removing treasure hunter brings a feeling of integrity back into the game, which is very true. Buying your way through the game, it doesn't feel rewarding in the end. You're just skipping gameplay. It doesn't really make sense to me why you would want to pay to skip the gameplay, because if you're not enjoying the core gameplay to begin with, why are you playing the game? The game is supposed to be fun, right? And if the game's not fun for you, then find something that is fun. Why would you pay to experience less of a game? You know, it doesn't really make sense. Removing treasure hunter would significantly improve the reputation of the game. Anyone would have expected that. Easy statement. The experience of playing felt better without treasure hunter promotions popping up every day. Also very true, they're very intrusive and there's no way to turn them off. Even when you try to tick the turn off button, they still keep appearing again. Removing treasure hunter reduces disruption to gameplay and the in-game economy, which is also very true. I mean, if you get less experience items from loot boxes, then you would have more people interacting with the core gameplay loop, and that's involving processing resources that people are gathering in the game. So you're just taking these players away from the actual core gameplay and then placing them in the microtransaction economy version of the game, right? So here are the negative takeaways from removing loot boxes and treasure hunter. For more casual or time-poor players, treasure hunter rewards are crucial to helping them hit goals and keep the game accessible in their life. I think that this is sort of true, but also sort of false. RuneScape 3 is already massively faster than old school RuneScape. Treasure Hunter rewards aren't a way to keep the game accessible in your life. It's a way for you to speed through the game in a short amount of time. You're skipping the game, effectively, right? Players missed free items that help skilling gained by logging in each day for daily keys. Of course people are gonna miss free stuff that you give them, obviously. The loot box system has been giving people free samples for the better part of 10 years, if not more. Of course people are gonna miss free stuff, right? Players felt a reduced value of daily challenges without key rewards. Doesn't matter, honestly, because daily challenges give a lot of experience as it is. I don't even feel like you need to boost daily challenges in terms of the experience reward if you were to remove keys, because it's already so strong. There was frustration at not being able to access extra daily keys, which were held off till post-experiment, right? So people who liked spending keys couldn't spend keys for a week, boo-hoo. So they're basically saying there's a clear evidence that most players support the removal of Treasure Hunter, even among those who still wanted some progression-supporting microtransaction options. Even Jagex found out that there was a larger than expected amount of people who wanted to keep Treasure Hunter around. So I don't actually think that the people purchasing microtransaction items to progress through the game, I don't think they're doing it because they feel like the game is inaccessible without them. I think they're just lazy, honestly. If there were proper AFK methods of passively training your skills in game for everything, I think people could just use that. I don't think people who use microtransaction items are efficiency-first players either, so they're actively not using the best methods in the game to gain experience. They're just purchasing these relatively strong items that let them passively sit there and use them without having to interact with the game at all. When you're using microtransaction items to progress, you're effectively not playing the game because the items are using themselves. You click the item and then you wait 5 minutes for the items to get used up, and then you gain a ton of experience from it. You're not doing anything in the game, and I don't think these players necessarily want to do anything in the game. So if you create a idle skilling method for most of these things as a sort of crutch for these players to fall back on when they don't have any access to more microtransaction items, I feel that could be a way to maybe solve that problem, where they can continue to passively progress while not necessarily feeling they need to spend money on things, right? Because it's clear that they don't want to participate in the core gameplay as is. Otherwise, they wouldn't be using the microtransaction items to begin with. So to wrap this segment up, 76% of people felt like these changes would make RuneScape head in a positive direction. About 80% of people didn't feel like the microtransaction experiment made the game feel more grindy, which means that removing the items isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? And then you've got the 26% of people that like loot boxes, who felt like the game was less fair without access to loot boxes. It doesn't really make sense to me, but okay. If anything, the people who like loot boxes would be giving themselves an unfair advantage, right? By purchasing tons of loot boxes. Seems completely backwards to me, but alright. So they admit that the cosmetic free worlds was one of the less interacted with experiments of the 4, but about 2/3 of players felt like current cosmetics break their immersion. Now, unfortunately, I don't think that they're ever going to remove any of the immersion breaking cosmetics that they've already released, because some people have bought some of these items. You wouldn't just remove those from their account, right? But having the ability to toggle cosmetics would definitely fix that, in that people can individually turn off cosmetics if they want to. And then again, about 2/3 of players would like to see less flashy visuals on cosmetics. And a staggering 84% of players who answered the survey wanted some form of cosmetic toggle, which means there's a massive drive and want for a way to turn off cosmetics. So clearly that is something that I think should be prioritized. I also do think 100% the cosmetics are good for the game though, because they let you show off progression in certain ways, or different achievements in certain ways. You can just go as far as old school to see everyone running around in the same outfits a lot of times, right? When they're doing certain things, or at the top level bossing, everyone wearing the exact same armor. But in RuneScape 3, it's very different. Everyone has their own outfit because you've kind of tailor-made your outfit, which you then use for pretty much everything, right? And there's a lot more variety in outfits, but there is also a negative side to that, being that nobody really ever knows what you're wearing in terms of gear progression, so nobody can see where you're at in your gear progression journey. I do think that cosmetic toggle is the best solution to this problem, and it lets people choose if they want to toggle it on or off. Now, the third experiment was the removal of microtransaction items during Double Experience Weekend. And as Jagex expected, they say, this was the most contentious test. And I'm not surprised by that, because a lot of people will just stockpile their microtransaction items and then use them on Double Experience Weekend when they've got more time to play maybe, or get additional rewards from using them during a specific time frame. So over 80% of people changed skills, methods, or playtime in Double XP due to the experiment. The top reason players liked the event was being able to reconnect to the core gameplay without the microtransaction items. The most missed blocked items were portables and silverhawks at 65 and 57%. I'm not really surprised by portables, because that's something that people even doing core gameplay will use, because portables will generally sometimes save you your item or resource, or double your resource, right, when you're processing something. And silverhawks, they just give you agility experience for doing anything. And there's just no good way of training agility other than grinding it out by running courses constantly. So I feel like for a removal of potentially silverhawks, you'd want to add some kind of passive way of leveling agility. Half of players said enjoyment of Double XP decreased due to the experiment, which is actually massive. And it definitely shows you how addicted people are to microtransaction items. But then portables notably have been ingrained massively into the game, to the point where there are in-game items that will boost portables' effects. And those items in-game have nothing to do with microtransactions, they just exist to boost a microtransaction item. So that tells you how ingrained microtransaction items are in the game as of right now. And then 2/3 of players who take regular breaks said Double XP is an important moment to make gains when they can't often make time to play. And I mean, that's fair enough. Maybe some people don't play that much other than Double Experience Weekends, which is a little bit weird to me, but you know, everyone has different amounts of time in real life, so it's justifiable to have that opinion. During this test, they did see players branching out and reconnecting with the game's skilling loops, which is very positive. You want people to do that rather than just sitting around idling microtransaction items. Here they also touch upon the thing that I was talking about with agility specifically, but also portables, is that there is a value in shared AFK skilling experience in social hubs. While some of this feedback will be influential by diminished returns compared to usual Double XP, we will be considering how we retain some of the positives of that experience in healthier ways. And yeah, they also say, obviously, AFK-able skilling items serve a gameplay loop for players with less time. It lets them interact with the game world in a more idle way when they might not have as much attention to put into the game. And I think that is definitely something to consider and keep in mind. I know that I do really like having the game on a second monitor when I'm doing other things like editing, and I would like to see that kind of gameplay be retained in some form. Now, I don't necessarily use microtransaction items to do that. I generally find more passive ways of doing regular skilling activities, but you know, it's the same idea of wanting some kind of idle solution to progress your skills. Here they say, when we looked at the 57% of players who missed Silverhawks, or the 49% that missed proteins, the motivation for using them is to help minimize time spent on repetitive or boring skilling methods. And that feeds back to the whole wanting an idle solution to skilling methods, right? There are 100% ways that you can incorporate more idle skilling methods into the game that would help players who want a more laid-back experience to just use those methods. Jagex continued to say that over time we will be working on ways to keep the game accessible for players with less time through healthier gameplay-centric solutions. And for the fourth and final experiment they did, we've got the release of a range of ability overrides and some cosmetic outfits that were added to the in-game marketplace, purchasable with rune coins, which is the premium currency you can buy for real money in RuneScape 3. And they say that the cosmetic drop was far more popular than they expected, which is great, honestly. Having direct purchases for cosmetics, I believe, is far healthier than having loot boxes and randomness involved. They say a higher share of the active player base decided to purchase a cosmetic than they anticipated, and of those, 75% purchased multiple items. So 3 in 4 people purchased more than one item. So they say that removing the chance to get mechanics, so like randomness, and adding more options to choose from makes purchasing cosmetics better. 76% prefer the marketplace over treasure hunter, and 68% said the larger selection to choose from increased their interest in cosmetics. So I believe that there's nothing bad about any of this, really. You've still got those 25% of players who absolutely love and would die for treasure hunter coming in here as well. There was also feedback saying that, in similar vein to the cosmetic free worlds, players want us to lean more into the visual style that feels like a part of the world and avoids disruptive immersion. So fantasy, medieval, and dark gothic and lore cosmetics are the most favored visual style, which I 100% agree with. That's the very core and essence of the fantasy genre, so I definitely feel like that's the way to go. 48% want us to focus more on immersive, lore, or retro-themed cosmetics. I feel like they've done a fantastic job with the retro items that they have been releasing, namely the God Armor, I believe, the Gilded Armor, the new effectively higher resolution rune armor that they released. I believe they released some dragon items as well. The dragon scimitar looked really good in a higher quality version of the similar style to old school RuneScape's dragon scimitar, but in like a RuneScape 3's graphic fidelity kind of way. Though at the same time, it does feel a little bit weird that you'd have to pay real money through premium currency to get a updated graphic version of an old school item, especially when that's just an item in old school, right, that you can get in game. But a lot of the outfits they have released over the past 5 years have been really like crazy out there. Probably past the 5-year mark too, like the past 10 years there have been some really crazy outfits. They say 44% of players avoid buying cosmetics perceived as low effort or unoriginal, with 36% avoiding purchases that feel out of place in RuneScape, which means that 66% of people will buy things that feel out of place. So, yeah, it is what it is. Some people really like those weird cosmetics. There is definitely a fan base for that kind of stuff. But that's why we need the cosmetic toggle too, right? So that if you do see something like that, you're like, oh god, no, and you can turn it off. So they say this further reinforces how cosmetics fit within the vision of RuneScape if we focus more on immersive visual designs. We also gained valuable insight into various legacy cosmetics and styles you would like to see offered in the future, as well as UX improvements to make the experience of purchasing better too. And they say that cosmetics are a positive part of the game that also support long-term sustainability. So I think that having direct purchase cosmetics is far better than having randomness locked ones in loot boxes, especially considering how crazy expensive it is to be on drop rate for some of the loot box things. Over the past maybe 2 years now, 1 to 2 years, we've been seeing cases where the average drop rate for a cosmetic in Treasure Hunter has been 1 in 16,000 keys. That's thousands of dollars to be on drop rate for a promotion reward cosmetic. And obviously, nobody expects anyone to use that much money to get the item, right? It's purely so that it has a balanced price in the game, because of course this rare item from loot boxes is also tradable in game, right? And they want it to be worth millions, if not billions of coins in game. So they put the drop rate insanely low in the loot boxes, and then people buy loot boxes because they want to get lucky and, you know, try to get the item, but the odds are not in their favor ever when the drop rate is that low. Realistically, nobody's getting the item, right? If you get it, it's all pure luck. You could spend $20,000 and still not get the item, because it has such a low drop rate in the loot box system. And if someone placed a $20,000 cosmetic in a store that you could buy, most people would just laugh at it and say that's ridiculous. but people are trying to get these items in loot boxes. It's very bad for not just mental health, but it's very deceptive is what it is, because there's no realistic chance that these people are going to be getting the item, but they're still spending money on the loot boxes. What I'm not entirely sure about though is, would someone who spends $5,000 on loot boxes also be okay with spending $5,000 on a single cosmetic? Because, I mean, the thrill of opening the loot boxes, you know, that gambling drive that some people have, that wouldn't be there if you're just purchasing the item directly. But I also 100% think that driving people towards gambling is bad, and I don't think that should be in the game anyway, but it has been for such a long time. So where does this all leave Jagex? They say the experiment has shown us that significant changes to microtransactions have real promise and support. Importantly, it has also taught us that new problems it can create too. Thanks to your incredible participation and detailed survey of responses, we have enough information to act. We now know the bold changes to propose and the player challenges we'll need to solve in healthier ways over the long term. So where does this lead? On October 29th, we will unveil our final proposal for the future of RuneScape. Join us on YouTube for the reveal as we lift the curtain on our proposal for revolutionary change and a final decision that will be entirely in your hands. Thank you, and we will see you soon. So here we've got the video titled Our Proposal for Microtransaction Change by RuneScape. Let's see what they have to say about their plans for the future of microtransactions. I feel like this announcement has to be massive because they tweeted on their X account, "Don't miss out on the biggest moment in RuneScape history." So they're insinuating that this is bigger than EOC, Evolution of Combat, with the combat changes that make RuneScape 3 very different from old school RuneScape. It's bigger than the removal of the wilderness and free trade. It has to, in that sense, fundamentally change the core of the game in some form. So with that in mind, I'm very curious what they have to say in this video proposal.
The decision to remove Treasure Hunter is now in your hands. We promise to make major changes to secure the long-term future of RuneScape. Today marks the next step in that journey, and one of the most important moments in RuneScape's history. Starting right now, we're opening a 14-day community poll on the future direction of the game. Since the Squeal of Fortune was introduced in 2012 and Treasure Hunter in 2014, our approach to MTX has slowly eroded the integrity of RuneScape.
It has.
The most egregious elements of our MTX offering are those which enable players to skip core gameplay, missing much of what makes RuneScape special, the vast world of experiences Gielinor has to offer. And while these systems have been a major part of how we funded the game historically, that's come at the cost of something precious, the integrity of our game. This is something we must correct.
But today isn't just about Treasure Hunter. We are committed to dramatically improving the integrity of RuneScape across every area of the game, not just its monetization. This means tackling things such as RuneScape's visual identity, design, core gameplay experiences, and long-standing challenges head-on.
Treasure Hunter is only one step in a much broader plan to put integrity back at the heart of RuneScape's future.
Okay.
Since June, we've run a series of experiments to test alternative forms of MTX, gather your feedback, and explore a future where RuneScape grows more sustainably, primarily by the size of the community. Tens of thousands of you took part in surveys for these experiments, and we've collected an unprecedented level of feedback. The vast majority of you called for a meaningful reduction in MTX due to harm caused by Treasure Hunter's offering. A significant portion of you also told us you'd like to retain access to less aggressive means of supporting progression when time is limited. This moment is about finding that balance together, one which takes a real step forward for integrity and also supports all players no matter how they choose to play. But the strength and positivity from all of you makes it clear to us that this is the right direction to pursue.
So, with a decision as important as this, it's only right that it's one that we make together. That's why we're putting this to a final community-wide poll as of today. If this poll surpasses 100,000 votes, we will remove Treasure Hunter
Wow.
from RuneScape.
Okay.
With it, we will be removing associated gameplay benefiting items available within Treasure Hunter from sale too. This means no more purchasable lamps, no more proteins, no more portables, no more dummies, and a whole lot more.
Wow.
For those of you who told us you rely on MTX items to fit RuneScape into your life, we will continue to offer bonus XP via packages in the store.
Okay.
But in order to retain a healthy gameplay loop, which encourages players to play RuneScape as intended, the amount of storable bonus XP per skill will be capped. We believe offering bonus XP in a limited, healthy way strikes the right balance, supporting the 54% of players that expressed a desire to retain a progression-friendly MTX option, while also reducing the harm to game integrity caused by direct XP sales, proteins, and dummies, which allow for gameplay to be skipped entirely.
That's
But
huge.
This isn't just about providing an alternative.
We'll also be investing heavily in new, integrity-first content that creates more meaningful ways to play, progress, and achieve your goals without the need for MTX.
Okay.
Our goal is to make RuneScape's core experience the most rewarding path forward. This is something we'll continue to explore openly and transparently with all of you, just as we've done in our experiments.
Cosmetic purchases will still be available, but with a much greater focus on making sure that these are more grounded within the world of Gielinor.
Okay.
We also heard your feedback on cosmetic-free worlds loud and clear. While dedicated worlds were an experimental way to collect feedback, it's clear you want more control over the visibility of immersion-breaking cosmetic items.
That's why we'll also add cosmetic toggle options to suit those of you who want a pared back visual experience.
That's
But
massive.
that's not everything. Like with the poll that birthed Old School, we want this vote to be about ushering in a new era of RuneScape, and a validation of how far we should take this initiative. As such, if this poll reaches 100,000 votes, it will also unlock a dedicated, full-scale, year-long integrity roadmap with regular releases.
Wow.
This will include a wide roster of integrity-driven updates, from the decluttering of Gielinor to tackling the worst DailyScape offenders and revisiting the combat status quo.
Daily escape reduction?
This will all be done without impacting one of the biggest and most ambitious content roadmaps in RuneScape's history. We'll debut that next January in a very special RuneScape Ahead. Finally, any votes beyond 100,000 will act as a clear signal of how far you want us to take this, and how much you want us to invest in reshaping this new era of RuneScape.
This is a time to be bold, and to make one of the most important decisions in RuneScape's history together. This decision means dramatic change. Thanks to our experiments, we believe more than ever that this is the road to a bright and thriving future for RuneScape. Through this vote, the future of RuneScape is now in your hands.
Head over to runescape.com to read the official blog outlining all the details of this poll. This poll is live for 14 days, so cast your vote and have your say on the future direction of RuneScape today.
Yo, I love this because it tackles the main pain points that I feel the game has at the moment. The only thing it doesn't tackle is the really toxic mindset behind the people who like these things to begin with. Because it's not lost on me that I've had the chat open here on the side, right? There's a scary amount of people who say that these things are L takes. People who like DailyScape, people who like Treasure Hunter and Microtransactions, and those people are clearly being represented in the blog post that they posted about as well, showing that there is a scary amount. They're the minority, but there is a scary amount of people who like microtransactions. And I'm not really surprised either by this because microtransactions have been in the game for such a long time at this point. I want to say they've been in the game longer than they haven't been in the game at this point. I 100% think that with the help of old school players, all these things will pass. I genuinely think that removal of Treasure Hunter is better for the game. I don't understand people who don't want that to happen. I don't understand people that want loot boxes in the game personally. I don't know any people personally who like it, so I'm clearly not in that focus group. But I do think that keeping bonus experience in a sort of capped state where you can purchase it to speed up the core gameplay, but you still have to play the core gameplay. And I think that's very important, because that means you're still interacting with the broader game's economy as a whole, and with the broader game as a whole, rather than just skipping it with these buyable items. I really like that they're addressing the cosmetics in a sort of toggleable fashion, while also keeping in mind future cosmetics to be more RuneScapey, but also just having a toggle for personal use where if you click it, all cosmetics of other people will be turned off. And that's like the best thing that could come out of this would be a personalized cosmetic toggle option. I don't think cosmetic free worlds is a good way to go, because at that point you're splitting the community. Having a personalized toggle lets you still interact with anyone in the game, regardless of cosmetic opinion. And then also talking about integrity in all of this is a huge win, in my opinion, too. Talking about the reduction of RainyScape, which has been a massive feedback point that they've gotten back from the Catalyst League, the temporary game mode that's been running throughout October and November. Because many old school players jumped into RuneScape 3 to try it out, and they instantly noticed that so many of the training methods are locked to, or well, not locked to, but massively sped up by doing dailies, hourlies, weeklies, monthlies. And while weeklies and monthlies aren't as egregious, dailies and hourlies are insanely overpowered compared to what they should be. When I was playing League, I just had to stop doing dailies and hourlies because it was ruining my experience. I was in the middle of something, and then the clock strikes on the hour, and I have to run off somewhere to do something. Otherwise, I'm gonna miss out on that hour. Missing out means slower progression, and realistically, they're not even fun events. I can guarantee you, if there was no incentive to do these events, if they weren't so strong or gave tons of money or items, nobody would be doing them. They're only doing them because they're so strong that you feel like you miss out by not doing them. Now also, there's probably going to be worries about, oh, they're going to remove my items from my bank and stuff. I don't think they're going to remove things you already have. If you're trying to scare people into thinking, oh, don't vote on the poll because they'll remove your items, they're not going to do that, right? You just won't be able to continue getting more of the items. I also imagine that any bonus experience you already have will just still be there. You just won't be able to gain more of it until you reach whatever threshold cap that they set. I don't know how much that's going to be. They're not going to delete things you already have. That's my point. So if we head to the main website now, we've got Remove Treasure Hunter. The future of RuneScape is in your hands. We promise to make major changes to secure the long-term future of RuneScape, one where microtransactions is significantly reduced. So just as we did for the birth of old school, you will cast the vote to decide. From today until November 11th, we're opening a public vote on our proposal for the future of RuneScape. You can find it here. The proposal: full removal of Treasure Hunter loot boxes. It will be completely removed from RuneScape. No more paid keys, free daily keys, quest keys, or daily challenge keys. It's gone forever. I'm very supportive of that. Removal of 225 direct XP and skilling items from sale. And I think that's a key takeaway here. They're removing them from sale. So they're not removing them from your bank. You will keep the items. Don't worry. That means no more purchasable direct XP, no more proteins, no more dummies. Nothing of that. Oh, here they also mention it. Should these items be removed from sale, we'll make sure there's an extended amnesty period where you can use up any of these items that you currently own. So here's a list of all the items that are being removed from sale, but not being removed from the game itself, if that makes sense. You just won't be able to buy them anymore, but if they do have a source from gameplay in-game, you'll likely still be able to get them from those sources. They are also planning to invest heavily in new integrity-first content that creates more meaningful ways to play, progress, and achieve your goals in healthier ways if you are one of the people who heavily relies on these items. They've got a very extensive list here of a lot of microtransaction items. Potentially something I could see them doing is creating, particularly for the lucky items, I think that there would be a world where they could create cosmetic versions of those so that people keep them for cosmetic purposes. So like they said in the video, they'll be investing in a year-long integrity roadmap to address a lot of the issues that RuneScape has, from the UI, the user interface, to onboarding, to RainyScape. revisiting the combat status quo and beyond, so combat balances. They're going to be offering purchasable bonus XP to help progress players who might want to purchase some speed up. As far as I'm aware, double XP isn't going anywhere either, so you'd still have bonus XP and double XP weeks. So you'd still have times where you could progress faster than others. So let's see how the poll is doing so far, shall we? As of right now, it's only been an hour since this poll went out, and we're already 20% of the way towards 100,000. That's kind of crazy. So if I click vote yes, do I have to log in? And I have successfully voted. I'll drop a link to the poll page in the video description below as well, so you can check that out if you want to vote yourself, you want to support this movement. If you disagree, if you want to keep loot boxes and treasure hunter in the game, then that's your opinion and you're entitled to it, but I am very confident in voting yes to this myself. And to get ahead of something that I've seen popping up on Reddit a little bit too, is that there is currently a movement in the EU to reduce manipulative microtransaction practices, and I guess some people are tying this into what Jagex are doing at the moment. I just want to address this as well while I'm at it in this topic and state of mind. They're not trying to ban all microtransactions through the EU, but they are trying to reduce the amount of manipulation that's going on around microtransactions. So think they want to reduce the amount of bundles of currencies you can get, where the currency bundles never match up with the amount that you spend on something. They want to have more of an inline. If you need to spend 2,000 gems on something, then the bundle they sell you will be 2,000 gems. They also want to include ways of getting refunds for premium currency, because they want to connect a real world value to these currencies, which surprisingly enough doesn't actually exist at the moment. A lot of game companies don't consider there to be any value in premium currencies when you're spending real money to get them. But having a way to get refunds for these premium currencies if you have too much of it, that would be an additional thing that EU is trying to do. And then also trying to reduce the addictive practices of like trying to, I guess, guilt people into spending money. They just want to reduce those things mainly. And maybe Jagex are trying to get ahead of the curve here with these changes to their loot box system. I don't necessarily think there is a connection between the EU. There maybe is an incentive for Jagex to change things based on the movement that's going on in the EU at the moment, but I don't think they're linked in that Jagex feels pressured into needing to change things. But you know, it's all speculation on my part. I don't necessarily think that they're only doing it because the EU is forcing them to do it. But I do think that the EU is encouraging them to think about changing things, if that makes sense. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a like and subscribe for more RuneScape content. Apologies for the slower uploads. I was sick for about a week and a half, and I was also gone for a week at a family party, so that's where I got the sickness. I'm a little bit behind still on the RuneScape content videos, but I'll be pushing those out as fast as I can. So thank you, and I will catch you all in another video. Rainy out.